beautiful sunrise in the Pacific Northwest this morning. Hey, God bless you guys, man. Thank you for tapping in for some Real Talk from the Heart this morning. This morning's Real Talk is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 28, verses 28 and 29. Now, to give you the background, the Lord has sent the prophet Isaiah to prophesy a word of judgment. It's called a burden word, right? A heavy word. And the reason why is because God's people have entered into a lifestyle of idolatry, and they have begun to trust the enemy, right, the Assyrians, to deliver them. And so Isaiah is talking along the lines of the way God disciplines. And this morning I want to talk to you about really just understanding the discipline of God, or understanding divine discipline, and why God does it, and the purpose, what God wants to see come forth out of the discipline that he gives his people. And so I want to read here, Isaiah is using an agricultural illustration, if you will, an illustration of a farmer, a plowman, he says. And so let me read this to you, verses 28 and 29. It says, "Bread flour must be ground, therefore he does not thresh it forever, break it with his cartwheel, or crush it with his horsemen." Verse 29, this also comes from the Lord of hosts, again speaking of the discipline, who is wonderful in counsel and excellent in guidance. Now, discipline, right? When you are in the middle of the discipline of God, right? When God is disciplining you, man, it feels like you're being ground in the mill, as it says here. Bread flour must be ground. Right? And there are times in life where, listen, man, we must be disciplined. If God does not discipline us, then he's not being a loving God, because the Bible is very clear. The Lord chastens, the Lord disciplines those he loves. And the Bible's clear, beloved. Listen, if we are not being disciplined, then we are illegitimate, right? We are not true children of God, because a loving father will discipline his straying children. And that's what you see here. Must be ground. But there are times in life, man, when it feels like we are just being ground. Remember this, that the Lord does not waste discipline. He does not waste discipline, nor does he allow discipline, listen, to be too severe. He's not going to, that's what it says there. He does not thresh it forever. He doesn't crush it. He doesn't break it, right? So it's not going to be too severe. He's not going to break it. He's not going to crush it. He's not going to break you or crush you, but he is going to ground you, because, right, he loves you. That's the discipline aspect of it. It's not going to be wasted. It's not going to be too severe. And then he says here, it's not going to go on forever, which means, listen, the discipline, that season of discipline that God puts us through, is not going to go on too long. But listen, it will go on long enough to produce the intended righteousness that God wants to bring from the discipline. Now, listen here. Understanding God's discipline. What is God doing? He's trying to produce in you and in me the righteousness that he desires, right? That right living, that lifestyle that is pleasing to him. Again, backdrop, idolatry. They weren't abiding in the Lord. What hinders fruit from your life and my life? It's when we allow idolatry to come in. When we stop abiding in him, right? It hinders the fruit that we could be producing in our life, the fruit of righteousness, right? The fruit of love, and all these other things that God really says, and very clearly in his word tells us, right? They glorify him and bring delight to his heart. And so he says here in verse 29, this also, right? Speaking of this discipline that God allows, he says it's from the Lord, right? This discipline is from the Lord. And then it says this about that discipline, who is wonderful in counsel and excellent in guidance. We need to realize that counsel and guidance many times are going to come through the avenue of discipline, right? We will get to know the counsel of God and the guidance of God many times. Unfortunately, we got to learn it through discipline. But listen, it's excellent. It's wonderful how God works, man. The timing of the Lord's judgment, the timing of God's blessing, they're in his sovereign control. But you and I must listen. We must learn to listen, learn to live by his word, so that he can fulfill what he has promised to us. And that's what he was trying to get Israel here to really learn that, hey, he's a faithful God. He's going to care for them. They're still his vineyard. He's going to come through. But listen, they're going to have to learn to abide in him, to leave the idols alone, and learn to trust God to bring them to where he wants them to be. And the same thing is true for you and me. Let's leave them idols alone, right? Let's abide in the Lord. Let's trust in him, and we will see him fulfill, right, what he's always wanted to do in our lives. Hey, listen, the Lord loves you. I love you too. Praying for you, asking you please be praying for me today. God bless y'all, and I hope to talk to you guys again tomorrow morning, man. All right.